Hey, how's it going? Yes, very quickly. Okay, are we live?
We are, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to the last Senate Agriculture Committee meeting before crossover. So we'll go ahead and do a roll call.
Senator Bouchard.
Here.
Senator French.
Here.
Senator Cost.
Here.
Senator Wasserberger.
Excused.
Chairman Boner.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have 4 present, 1 excused.
Okay, first Senate file up is Senate File 93, Senator James.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. So I bring you a very simple but very necessary bill. So reason why I brought this is I talked to a lot of people throughout Wyoming, and one of the biggest concerns that they have in finding out who's representing them is trying to figure out their voting record. And currently, right now on the LSO website, it's quite a big task to try and see someone's voting record, because you have to go to each individual bill and look at how they did. It's very, very time consuming. So I brought this bill, which would make it extremely easy for people. It would put our voting record and our committee votes underneath our bio on the LSO website. They just click on a tab and they will be able to see how we've represented them. And talking with LSO IT, they said it would not cost any money and it would take less than a week to put this together. And this would include the entire time we've been in the legislature. So that's actually pretty much the bill. Starting on the second page, it just describes where it would be on the LSO website and what would be included in that spreadsheet. And the people would also have the ability to download our records as well. And so this is just what would be included, and I stand for any questions.
Any questions for Senator James? Senator French?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, just real quick, how long will this be in effect? If you're a senator or a House rep, and you've been there 10 years, it's your full voting record?
Mr. Chairman, Senator French, yes, it'll be in effect. It pretty much will archive. And it'll start currently with our current legislature, and it'll stick with us with our bio, which is able to be accessed. Go to the bottom right-hand corner of the LSO website. You can look up former legislators. So you'll be able to see, if we don't get reelected, you'll be able to see our record under that category. It's just attached to our bio, and it would be the entire time we've been in office.
Any further questions? Yeah, thank you, Senator James.
Thank you.
Any comment on this bill? Mr. Moline.
Brett Moline, Wyoming Farm Bureau Federation, sitting in support of this bill. The voting record, making even more easily accessible, is of strong interest to my members. And with that, I'll shut up and sit for any questions.
Okay, any questions from the Farm Bureau? See, when we have these sorts of bills in agriculture, you show up and provide testimony, so that's good. Senator Burchard.
I just have a comment, Mr. Chairman. You know, it's good to see you this late in the day and that eager to get up to the microphone. I just really appreciate it. It gives us inspiration up here.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I didn't have the night that you folks had last night. So I didn't have the night you had last night. So I'll stop there, sir. Thank you. Any further questions?
Yeah, thank you, sir. Any further public comment? Come on down.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Hello, Senators. Thank you. I'm in support of, my name is Nina Weber. I'm from Park County. I'm in support of Senate File 93. Why would you not want your good votes recorded so that everybody can find them and see them? We have many all throughout our state that they're unable to be here today and most of the days that this session is going on because they're busy, they're working, they're taking care of loved ones, things like that. So they can't attend. Why not show them and all of us that you value the Republican Party platform and support transparency in the Wyoming legislation? Please vote in favor of Senate File 93. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Weber? Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Any further public comment? Ms. Herman, come on down.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Marguerite Herman with the League of Women Voters, and special privilege to appear twice in 1 week for the Senate Ag Committee. I don't usually have this privilege. So I just want to comment that all these votes are currently already on the LSO website. The only difference is this organizes it, actually removes it from context, the vote, so that the actual bill is separated from the vote. And as we all know, every vote in every bill has a context. So for instance, you might vote against a bill that you yourself sponsored because of a poison pill amendment at the last minute. So in this, I can see, I mean, not having it in front of me, but that there would be a catch title in a vote, which tells the voter, which seems to have a peril of not just informing the voter, but maybe giving room for misinformation or misunderstanding. You'd have to go check down chase down the actual bill, see what amendments were offered. Maybe that votes before at the early part of the bill were one way, different at the last. And as we all know, anyone who's been here for more than one session, that a vote can be part of a long-term strategy. So it's not on the bill, but I want to be on the conference committee. So I want to be on the other side. I want to be on the prevailing side so I can ask for a reconsideration. So that a vote, unless you know these sort of inside game things, it's easy to misunderstand a vote. And again, a bill can change drastically from where it's introduced. to a final reading. And support may depend on how it ends up in the final version, which again is not apparent to most people, don't understand that inside machinations to go back and read a digest and to figure that out. So I think the votes are there. They're attached to, and they appear bill by bill. So you actually have to see that. And I think, and as the league, as you know, we're all about being, informed electorate, being engaged and informed, make the best votes. But I think organizing it this way actually gives more room for misunderstanding, misuse perhaps, not that I can see that coming, but so I guess I should have said at the beginning. So we would oppose this bill because the information is already accessible and actually in a more understandable version.
Senator Bouchard.
Hard on this one. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So may not have watched today, but I voted against what was touted as a pro-gun bill, and there are people that are going to look at that vote and they're going to probably call me. I'm not afraid of it. I mean, I think that the transparency is there, and it actually, when you got the phone number, the legislator, the voting record, I think that's where the dialogue starts. I mean, the email's there. They can say, hey, why did you vote against this? Or why did you vote for this? And then that's where the confusion goes away, because now they start talking to us, and that's a good thing. So I'm just not afraid of it. I don't think it's a problem. I think it's a good thing. Maybe we'll see in the future that it gets better. I mean, don't you agree? I mean, we always start with little steps and then we create better, right? We get better as we go. I mean, wouldn't you agree with that?
Mr. Chairman. So to some extent, but as I said before, the votes are there. They are attached in the context of a particular bill, which a person could look at the digest, see the amendments by the time it ended up justifying you switching from a supporter to an opponent makes sense. And what I can see is a list of votes based on catch titles, which may no longer represent the content of the bill, and someone, and to have to call and check on every vote. It just, it puts an awful lot of burden on the list. And I don't think it adds information. The information is there. I think it actually disassociates, taking away the context, I think, gives a more opportunity to make a real facile decision, not understand what was going on. And I'll tell you, I do a legislature 101 for people. And I tell them, you get a voting record, that's fine. You need to call in to find out exactly what was going on, because as we all know, situations may have someone voting one way and thinking another. So the record can be, if you're not really assiduous, can be misleading rather than informative.
Can I follow up? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that when people look at the votes in general, that same thing, everything you said can happen there too. I mean, that most people don't know how to look at the digest. They don't know what's there. So even with the condensed information, they can have a dialogue. And I think bringing the government closer to the people is the kind of the concept here. If it had all the other stuff, I mean, is that where it's a breaking point for you? I mean, if it had more information or a digest or another link, is that a direction you would want to go in? Or, I mean, I kind of think this is a baby step. Then we come back with more ideas. I mean, I think all the data is there. It's just a matter of how they have to link the database to get the information. But I mean, any ideas to advance instead of just saying no?
Well, Mr. Chairman, actually, frankly, I think the current system is delivered in the best form possible with the easiest way to understand it. I think this bill would organize in a way that actually drains meaning out of it. So I don't think going in this direction is in the right direction. I think staying with we are now, and actually in the past, the league has been in favor of recording every vote. As we all know, recorded votes happen automatically only in certain times in a bill's passage. And at one time we said, record every vote, make them electronic. So increasing that tracking of people, like when there's a division vote. People sit down and who knows, all you have is a number. You don't know who voted how. And that met with great resistance, I must say. It took a tongue lashing from Senator John Schiffer over that. But anyway, so we've asked actually for more votes, more recorded votes, and been told, no, that would not help the process. So the votes are there. They're in the context, understandable. I don't think this improves the process. In fact, I think it increases the chance of misunderstanding and that sort of thing, because as we all know, a catch title can change the content, can change drastically, and expecting everyone to call and check out and chase down every vote is probably a little unrealistic.
Any further questions? Senator French.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just real quick. But can't they, so they have a listing of my votes. Can't they go like on the legislative website and pull up, since I'm freshman at this thing, 2022 bills, and then scroll down and punch on them, and then you can hit amendments, and it shows the amendments and what the bill is all about, and then the ayes and noes. I mean, doesn't that satisfy what they're looking for? I mean, I'm a bit confused.
Mr. Chairman, what you're suggesting is true, and it inserts one or two more steps in the process that I think if they're not necessary, I think what you can find on the LSO website right now is easier to understand, put in context. I still think people should call and check. I think always, because as we all know, you can go left in order to end up going right. And so, but to assume, as we all know, navigating the LSO website is not the easiest thing in the world. And to assume someone's going to make those 2 extra steps is probably, I think that's not to be assumed, would be easy and accessible and facile for most people on the website. I think right away now, all that information is there, and it's easy to understand. And so I don't see this as a step in a positive direction.
Okay, thank you for your testimony. Appreciate it. Any further public comment?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Mark Moody. I'm an ordinary citizen here in Cheyenne, and I support this bill, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Moody. Any
problem.
questions? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Any further public comment? Anybody online? Just double checking. Okay, going once, going twice. Public comment is closed. Committee, what's your pleasure? Okay, moved by French, seconded by Bouchard. Any discussion? Any amendments? Simple enough. Senator Bouchard.
I think it's a good idea. Like I said, I mean, I think I could be considered one of the most controversial voters in the room. And I don't think I don't have any problems with, I mean, I think it makes good dialogue. I think people actually, I mean, if they see something that I voted differently on, right, they call me and say, why did you do that? I think it's a good thing. I mean, I don't see the negatives. I mean, I can see potentially it happens, right? We all get those people that call us, but when they see it in black and white and then they contact us, I think it's a great thing. So.
Any further comment? Ready? Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and do a roll call.
Senator Bouchard.
Aye.
Senator French.
Aye.
Senator Cost.
Aye.
Senator Wasserberger submitted an absentee vote of aye. Chairman Boner.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, we have 5 ayes, do pass.
All right, thank you very much. Good job, Senator James. Next up, Senator Beitman, you got Senate File 96. Come on down. You do not. I can tell you right now.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Senator Beitman, Senate District 21, here to present to you Senate File 96, Collection of Election Ballots Prohibition. This is a simple little bill that came out of the idea originated from a election integrity scorecard where Wyoming got dinged up pretty good on. And this was probably the lowest hanging fruit on there and probably the easiest thing we can fix. So that's why I bring it to you in a budget session to fix it. What it does is it simply goes into our absentee ballot section 22.9.113. Current law, I'll read it to you. It's one sentence or two sentences long. Upon receipt, a qualified elector shall mark the ballot and sign the affidavit. The ballot shall then be sealed in the inner ballot envelope and mailed or delivered to the clerk. What this bill does says all of that, but it also says using one of the following methods, either mail it in or hand delivered to the location of the county clerk's office. And with a subsection B added, no person or group shall solicit, gather, or submit completed absentee ballots from any qualified elector unless a communication is initiated by a qualified elector to do so, and the ballot is accompanied by a written authorization signed by the voter on a form prescribed by our friends at the Secretary of State's office. What this would do is eliminate the practice of ballot harvesting. Now, allowing third parties to access absentee ballots threatens election integrity flat out. If you're at the voting booth, you don't hand your ballot to the nice lady next to you and say, hey, can you go scan that in for me? I'm going to take off and head to work. That wouldn't make any sense. That's not common sense. You wouldn't do that. Why would we allow that with absentee ballots? We need that chain of custody to remain intact so we know for sure that everybody's vote counts. This does not make it harder to vote, but it does make it harder to cheat, Mr. Chairman. And I think this is a good bill. It closes an opportunity for fraud. And I know the Secretary of State's office probably fill you in more on the details of the affidavit or the form that will be promulgated to be signed and how this will all work out. And I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Senator. Any questions, committee? Senator French.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Senator. When my parents got elderly and couldn't get to the polls, they were in a nursing home, but they still had their faculties and wanted to vote. I remember, and my mom couldn't even see. So how does this affect that? Because she had me read the ballot to her. And so I'd read the ballot to her and I'd say, well, how do you want to vote, Mom? And she'd say, whoever. Well, where she couldn't see, I had to mark it for her. And I'd say, okay. And I'd, make sure, all right, Mom, but you said this person and I marked your ballot X. Does this have any effect on that kind of thing? Because there's, as us baby boomers get older, there's more and more of those situations.
Go ahead, Senator.
Mr. Chairman, Senator French, that's a great question. And it's exactly why we wanted section B in there on page 3 of the bill at the top of the page. That is designed to take care of that situation you just spelled out exactly, because that's a main reason why a lot of people vote absentee, right? They're elderly or they're infirm or they don't leave the house much. Wyoming, we pride ourselves on early voting and absentee voting. We have a long early voting and absentee period. It's over a month long. So there's plenty of time to bank that vote. And this doesn't have any effect on that. What this subsection B would do is provide for that opportunity for you to help your mom. And if she were to fill out this form saying, and let the clerks know that, hey, we're going to do this. My son's going to take my ballot in for me and deliver it or mail it or whatever. You'll sign the form promulgated by the Secretary of State's office and you'll be good to go.
Any further questions? Oh, so I got one to talk about the felony offense for violation. See, you have, it looks like it's Roman at 11. What are other examples of things that are currently felonies? If you violate our election code, you happen to know?
I would probably punt to the Secretary of State's office rather than dig through the code at this late hour, sir.
And was there any consideration as to whether this should be a felony or misdemeanor or what, just a little bit more discussion along your thought
Well,
process? Yes.
I think, Mr. Chairman, as a matter of preference, something as serious as voter fraud, it goes against the absolute fundamental fabric of this country and free and fair elections. I would say a felony is in order if you're gonna to commit this type of voter fraud where you'd be gathering up other people's ballots and either throwing them in a ditch or throwing them in the garbage, not delivering them, tampering with them. That's a huge offense. That's a serious offense and needs to be punished accordingly.
Any further questions, committee? Senator Costa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Bouchard, should that say US mail rather than I'm sorry. Let's get the right one. Sorry.
Don't be
Senator
spreading
Bouchard.
rumors there.
All right, let me ask you that. Huh? I don't know what, Senator Bateman.
Yes, sir.
Should that say US mail rather than just mail? I'm just wondering if we should be accurate in identifying what is there. I don't know whether there's other kinds of mail or not, but I'm just thinking we probably ought to make sure we're getting it into the United States mail. I just wondered, here's a question.
Mr. Chairman, I would assume that says mail generally because you may be in another country or something. If you're on vacation and you take your ballot with you and you want to mail it off. That's just my assumption. That's why it's left intentionally broad like that, but it is a good question.
And you can vote absentee if you're deployed.
Yeah.
So it may not necessarily be US mail. Okay, any further questions? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Here we have representatives from the Secretary of State's office. Please come on down.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Kai Schoen, Election Director in the Secretary of State's office. Senate File 96, as already described by Senator Beitman, is a pretty simple bill. It really does simply clarify how a voter can return their absentee ballot if that's the voting method that they choose, while at the same time prohibiting collection of absentee ballots to be returned. And so otherwise known as ballot harvesting. With regards to the form, that's something that certainly our office would work in conjunction, with the county clerks on how that form would look. What should we have on that form so that we're making a form that is conducive to their business process and wouldn't be more, laborious for the voter themselves to fill out that form. And so we would work with them and how that would look. And form generally can mean a variety of things, from an actual paper form. It could mean a label that's placed even on an already absentee ballot or envelope that they receive. So there's options there. And with the rulemaking authority that this bill would give our office, we can define what that form looks like and work from there. And with that, I don't have any other comments, but would answer other questions the committee might have.
I just want to make sure you think this bill is drafted is be administered relatively easy. Maybe that's a question for the DA more than the Secretary of State's office, but just from your perspective, you think this bill's in good shape from an administrative standpoint?
Mr. Chairman, from an administrative standpoint, and I know we have Ms. Langford from the Clerks Association who can speak to that as well, but it can be administered as written. And again, working on the form with our county clerks will be really critical to making sure it's administered efficiently. So,
okay. Very much. Any questions for the Secretary of State's office? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Okay. We do have the county clerks here as well. Ms. Langford, welcome back to the Ag Committee.
This is becoming a habit.
It is for now.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Senators. I'm Mary Langford, and I have the honor of representing the county clerks of the state of Wyoming. My purpose here is to focus on the administration of Wyoming elections, and particularly ballot harvesting. The clerks have had the opportunity to review this bill, the proposed legislation, and would be able to administer it efficiently and effectively to preserve our integrity of our elections. The Clerks Association takes no position on the bill, but we are ready to stand for any questions that you might have.
Any questions for the clerks? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Okay, any other government officials? Or we open up to public comment? Okay, seeing none. Anybody else? Any public comment? Come on down, sir.
Good evening again, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Again, Mark Moody is the regular guy here in Cheyenne. I support this bill 100%. Ballot harvesting is a problem in many states. The New York Post actually did some on Project Veritas, where in Minnesota, Minneapolis, the brother of a councilman actually was harvesting ballots from the elderly. So I'm glad this bill does it. The only thing in the bill I didn't see in Pennsylvania, if you remember in 2020, there was an issue where people were turning in ballots late and they were accepting it. They kept changing the law. Is there something in this bill where there could be, like, say, has to be due on election day, so we don't have the mess like Pennsylvania did in 2020? I'm just remembering that in Pennsylvania. I remember Mark Levin talked about that.
Go ahead, Senator.
Thank you, Chairman. Actually working with, there's a few of us that actually work really close with the clerk and watch what's going on. So that's all handled at that level. So they don't, I can tell you, I'm probably one of the few people that actually know that there's multiple people that do vote sometimes, and they catch it. If you go to, just for the members of the public, get involved, go down to into the canvassing board at elections, watch how it really works. We've had a lot of, this is obviously an area that has to be fixed. I think it does, but a lot of the other questions that come up, we see that a lot of those things are already being handled. So.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, and Senator Bouchard.
Okay, thank you very much.
You can answer
Go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman and committee. I just wanted to address that question as well. And thank you, Senator Bouchard. There are other statutes in place that deal with absentee ballots that are delivered. And it has to be actually in the county clerk's office by close of the polls at 7 p.m. So late absentees are not accepted. So.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Any further public comment? Mr. Winnie?
Mr. Chairman, Bill Winnie, Sublette County. Although perhaps a little bit different than what the bill is talking about, I voted by absentee ballot for 25 years on active duty. Interestingly enough, Mary Langford was a county clerk that was handling it. And if the county clerks are happy with it, processing and everything, I would hope it will be found acceptable by the Senate. Subject to your questions. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Winnie? Okay, thank you, sir. Any further public comment? Anybody online? Okay. Okay, going once, going twice. Public comment is closed. Committee? Okay, moved by Senator Cost, second by Senator Bouchard. Any discussion, committee, or amendments? Okay, looks like we're good. Go ahead and do the roll call.
Senator Bouchard,
Aye.
Senator French,
Aye.
Senator Cost,
Aye.
Senator Wasserberger submitted an absentee vote of no. Chairman Boner.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, we have 4 ayes, 1 no. Do pass.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So we're moving on to the last Senate file for today, Senate File 69, Senator Salazar. Go ahead and proceed, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Chairman, I bring Senate File 69. It's a 3-page bill. And if you look at page 3, it gives you the basis of the bill. Line 2, the taxable value of any property. And then goes to 6, shall not increase in any one year by more than 5% from the taxable value of the property determined in the prior year. So let me explain very briefly, Mr. Chairman and members, why I bring this forward. And I'm sure that you're as sensitive as I am. Our seniors, our veterans on fixed incomes, our families working 2 jobs, make ends meet, are losing their homes because they can't afford the increase in property tax assessments. In my town of Du Bois, there are actually incidents of property tax assessments going up 50%. Now, in that community where we have so many seniors, you can imagine what that does to a senior couple who've lived there for 20 or 30 years with a 50% increase in one given year. They have to move. They have to move. And so I've been asked by a number of those types of individuals that I represent to bring a bill like this forward. It's simple, I think, in its scope, but it is clearly a major policy determination by you all, whether or not this is something that you're interested in. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, I stand for your questions. This is my attempt. You heard the president of the Senate give his passionate plea similarly on this issue. This is my attempt to help my constituents who are really struggling with property tax assessments. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I am open.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A question for you, Senator. Suppose that the value of the property jumps to, I don't know, let's say 35%. And so you're saying 5%. Is the county able to continue 5% until they get to the 35, or are they only allowed 5% on that particular valuation?
They're only up to 5%.
But what I mean is the next year, because.
Correct. Correct, Senator. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, Senator Cox. It is up to 5% in a 12-month period. Yes. So no, I understand that this is very limiting. I give you that. There are people, and again, it's a policy decision. I fully understand if this is not the direction you want to go, but I'm sure I'm not the only elected official who's seen people cry in front of you because they're going to leave their homes because of these incredible increases in assessment. I know that some of them have told me, well, it's with the influx of previously non-residents from Wyoming coming in and purchasing property at an exorbitant amount. I guess I'm not smart enough to know exactly all the reasons why it's occurring, but it is occurring. And so that's why I bring that forward, sir.
I'm not sure I'm explaining it very well.
Oh, okay.
Let me try again. Let's say the property value is at $1,000 and it jumps up to 7,000. And so you do 5% the first year, which doesn't get you to the valuation that it really is. The next year they do 5%, the next year they do 5% until they get to the 7,000 value. Is that the understanding of what you're saying?
That's my understanding.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, had a conversation with an individual on, I get it. I understand it because my property, just because of the location I'm at, is going through the roof. And, I'm not on a fixed income yet, but getting there. Won't be long. And so I get it, but, Proposition, what was it, 13 in California years ago? I believe it was a 2% cap. And that was all good for a couple years. But then as inflation, well, now we're looking at close to 10%. So inflation, maybe that road grader that was $200,000 might be 220, is it restricting the abilities of the cities and counties to properly keep up? You know where I'm going with this? I mean, because their expenses may be wages, cost of materials, gravel, whatever, goes up maybe 8%, but their revenue from the taxes is going up 5%. Can you address that at all,
Yeah.
Senator?
Mr. Chairman, Senator French, you are exactly correct. You're exactly correct. This is prohibitive to up to 5%. I still do not understand, even today, and I've tried so hard to understand what the formula is every year by our assessors on how they determine property tax assessments. I don't understand it. And they're smarter than I am, because I do not have a handle on that. But you are absolutely correct. This puts a cap on 5%. And if the county has expenses higher than that, then this bill leans toward the property tax owner versus the county. Straightforward.
These buttons, I don't know, it's my arthritic fingers. And that, just to make a comment, that can go the other way. Right now inflation's high, but it could drop, the values could continue rising, but that inflation could be at 2%, say, and they're possibly pulling in up to 5%. So that would be an advantage to those counties and municipalities on the other side of things. Oh, anyway, thank you.
I agree. Mr. Chairman, Senator French, I agree.
Any further questions, committee? Yeah, well, I have one about Article 15, Section 11 of the Wyoming Constitution. Department says that the property should be valued at its full value as defined by the legislature. Also says we shouldn't create any new subclasses within class. How, especially in context of the long discussion we had in committee of the whole about the constitutional amendment that would achieve a similar goal, how do you think that your bill stacks up in terms of the constitutionality question?
Mr. Chairman, I think it's constitutional.
Okay, why do you think that?
Because I don't think it abridges that. This idea was brought forward last year by a representative in the House, and that there was a full discussion on that. I've read that section of the Constitution. I simply don't believe that this runs into that. So.
Okay. Any further questions? All right, thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Any further public? Well, we have the county assessors here, it looks like, potentially. So we'll go with them next. Or Mr. Moline here. You come on down. You're eager. I like it.
Mr. Chairman, Wyoming Farm Bureau Representative Brett Moline, sitting in favor of this bill. It fits with my members' policy of no more than a 5% raise. Several years ago, agricultural land is always valued on its ability to pay. So it's based on the price of the goods that we produce. In 2 years, irrigated land went up by over 40%. It was 25% one year, 15% the next year, which sounds good because the price of hay went up, but that only helps if you're selling hay. A lot of my members only produce what they use, but this does fit with my members' policy, so sitting in support. The interesting question that if it is unconstitutional, it's not setting another class because it's impacting all of the property in the any other, so it's not separating out another class, it's just dealing with that one class different. That would be my one suggestion, but I am interested if it is unconstitutional, that's something my members need to know. When the discussion came up, about being constitutional and unconstitutional wasn't part of the conversation, but that is something that if it is found to be a major boo-boo, we need to fix our policy. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll quit babbling and sit for any questions.
Any questions for the Farm Bureau? Go ahead.
I don't know if you can answer this, but I've seen, Mr. Chairman, sorry. I've seen where there are blocks that and property that there's people getting different assessments. So I know that they do that internally. So I don't know why this would be any problem codifying this, because I know there are, things that they do and they make these adjustments, and sometimes you can't tell why they do them. So I know there's variances that we can't figure out. This one would be very clear of why it's taking place. So have you seen any of that stuff going on in your neck of the woods?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Bouchard, that is not something that I follow, and why there is differences in residential or other types of property. I am by no means qualified to answer that. With agricultural land, it's based on its productivity. So we know if it's an extremely fertile next to the river area as compared to something that's on a high bench, that the soil just isn't as good, that land is classified. So that's taken into account because it's not what you produce, it's what you would normally produce. So I can help answer those questions on agricultural land. But when it comes to residential land, I am by no means qualified. I know it's based on market and how they judge that, how they use those sales to come up with that. That's a question that a representative of Wyoming Farm Bureau is not qualified to answer, and I won't even attempt to, sir. Not meaning to dodge it, it's just I don't know.
Appreciate your honesty. Any further questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
It looks like we do have somebody from the County Assessor's Office. Welcome, sir.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. My name is Dave Davis. I'm the Sweetwater County Assessor, and I'm also the president of the Wyoming County Assessors Association.
Go ahead and proceed.
Okay. Our association does not take positions on tax policy. Our concerns, that's your function as the legislature. Our concern is whether it's fair and equitable and whether we feel it can be administered. In this situation, Chairman Boner beat me to the point. The Constitution says all property shall be valued or taxed at its full value. In our opinion, this bill does not let it be taxed at its full value because you are putting a cap on it, an arbitrary number that stops that value for that calculation for those tax purposes. We also feel any cap at this point is just arbitrary. It's just another number that's going to make that not at its full value. And I have an example of this equality issue too. So let's just pick a county that's thriving, that's growing. You could have a $400,000 house that was valued at $400,000 market value the year before and had a 20% increase based on sales. And I would be happy to sit with Senator Salazar and I'll explain the math. I've done it a lot of times. I'd be happy to do that. But that value of that property that next year should have been $480,000. With a 5% cap, it's only going to be valued at $420,000. So what that did is give that individual property owner a $60,000 tax break on their property. So in that situation, you could have a neighboring county that's maybe more ag related, that isn't booming like the other one is. That same $400,000 property maybe only has a 3% increase from the previous year. It gets it to its value of $412,000 for tax purposes. So it's being valued at its full value because it didn't meet the 5% threshold. that property in that booming community is getting a $60,000 discount because of this 5% cap. We feel like that makes this policy, it's not fair and it's not equitable to all the taxpayers in the counties across the state of Wyoming. There is some effects of this, and the question regarding the motor grader is a great question because your taxing authorities are going to lose revenue. They are not going to collect as much property taxes. They're not going to be able to pay for services. Schools are going to suffer. Counties are going to suffer. Anybody with bond payments, because bond payments are required to levy enough money to cover penalty and interest, or I'm sorry, their principal and interest on their bonds. They are going to have to levy more to actually cover that because we've artificially lowered the value of those properties in that area. There's just a lot of ripples to this legislation that we think are going to cause some problems for a lot of different people. Currently, we as assessors have to be in compliance with the Department of Revenue and the State Board of Equalization. As far as our statistical measures, we don't just pull this stuff out of the air. We actually have compliance numbers as far as our mean and median, our coefficient of dispersion, and our price-related differential. We have to make sure we meet those quotas by those oversight agencies or our values are not certified. So in this situation where we're putting a cap on those values, I don't know how we can be uniform. I don't know how the values can be certified. I don't know how we could be, if there was ever an issue where a county needed to be equalized, I don't know how that would be done. This really throws a monkey wrench in that compliance issue. I think that's pretty much the biggest part of my spiel. I am happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman, or any member of the committee. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you, sir, for the testimony. Appreciate you being here. Do we have we have another assessor online, it looks like?
Mr. Chairman, I don't see Ms. Huxtable online at the moment.
Okay, all right, well, never mind then. Any other county assessors in the room or any other elected officials? Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Winnie, come on down.
Mr. Chairman, Bill Winnie, Sublette County. I retired from active duty in the Navy in 2002. If you take the cumulative compounding of the federal cost of living adjustment, which is based on the CPIW calculation, and there are those that say that is an inadequate number, but it's worked out well for me. But the compounding has resulted in my retirement check for active duty service doubling from 2002 to this year. State employees, state troopers, teachers, and so on, do not get a COLA. And so on the one hand, this bill seeks to give them some, what should I call it? Equity is not quite the right word, but return for that, if you will, since they don't get a COLA. One of your fixes could be to put in place a COLA. I've seen a number of votes over the years in my years in the gallery, and somehow they just don't pass. So I would offer you the thought that the constitutional requirement is the property be valued properly. You can still do that. This bill, as I understand it, seeks to limit what the taxpayer actually pays on the house, what they're billed for it. And so given the fact that state employees are not given a COLA, I think this is one way to work toward fixing that. I understand the words of the assessor just a few minutes ago. That's a tough nut to crack, but you guys need to figure it out. Like I said, I think one of the fixes would be to give state employees a COLA, but that's been a tough thing too. Subject to your questions, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Winnie. Any further questions, committee? Thanks, sir. Wait, sure, come on back down. That's, yeah.
I apologize, Mr. Chairman. One thing I forgot to mention also is you've already funded it sounds like the Department of Revenue is going to get funded the property tax refund program, which is exactly for this issue. So it's based on income. It is something that is funded that will help taxpayers. hopefully not get taxed out of their homes. It's a refund program based on taxes that are timely paid. So there's no reimbursement back to the county. They have to pay them, and then the refund is processed, and then they get a portion of that property tax back. There's no limit on the tax. I mean, there's qualifications on the income, and at one point it was 50% of the tax. Now that dollar amount or that percent may have changed, but you as a body have actually agreed to help these people out already with that property tax refund program. And it's something the assessors really pushed hard for, and we do appreciate it. We see these taxpayers when they come into our office, and that's where they start. When they see their estimated tax calculation, they come in and that's the first thing they do. And the first thing we do as assessors is, are you a veteran or are you a widow of a veteran? It's a program you can qualify for to actually get part of that tax taken off. If you're not part of that, the next thing we used to do was go, here's you need to contact the Department of Revenue, get the application for the property tax refund program. And at one point it was not funded. Now, at this point, I believe it's going to be after this session, and I do appreciate that. That does help these people out, and it's not anything that has to be studied or new bills passed or anything else. Helps people today, and I applaud you for taking that step. Thank you very
Thanks
much.
for the reminder. Appreciate it. Any further questions? Senator Bouchard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what county did you work in?
Mr. Chairman, Senator, I am with Sweetwater County.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, follow up, some of the things that I've seen, and I've seen the maps. I mean, I got a guy in my county here that has shown where there are people. I mean, what's happening in this bill is actually happening. So, I mean, it almost would seem like we'd have to dig it all out and probably make those people's taxes come up because there's money being left on the table. But I'm just saying that from what I've seen on this map and how all the patchwork of things that are happening, this is already happening. And I'm not going to mention names or anything, but I've seen it. There's things that are happening that kind of follow this, that there are certain people getting an advantage. So I know it does happen, but so forget this bill for a second. How does that happen? And how does that get corrected? Because if that's happening, then that means if this is wrong, then that shouldn't happen either.
Mr. Chairman, Senator, I'm still a little confused. Are people's values being suppressed? What we do in the assessor's office, mass appraisal. Okay, mass appraisal, the way that process works, and I explain this to a lot of people when they come in and they don't understand how their property is being valued. So mass appraisal, the Department of Revenue loads cost tables into our computer assisted mass appraisal system that every county uses. So we all have the same tool. They load those cost tables in every year, and they are based on the market, and there's local multipliers. So the prices went up. I mean, if you tried to buy a sheet of plywood last year, the price of lumber has gone up. So that affects how we value property as well. Okay, so replacement cost new, less depreciation is where that comes from. So the cost tables are loaded. We basically take every house in the jurisdiction apart. We put the new cost tables in, and then we put it all back together. So we got replacement cost new. Well, not every house is new. So at that point, we have to depreciate that value. And when we get to that point, then we start looking at sales. So what's happening this year is the cost tables went up for obvious reasons. So did the sales. So we have seen these sales increases along with the cost table increases that has magnified that price differential. But keep in mind, we have those statistical numbers we have to be in compliance with. So when we do this analysis, we want to be at 96%, 96, 97. Our number is between 95 and 105. And what that means is all the values of the properties in our jurisdiction need to be between 95% of the sale prices for the jurisdiction. Now, as we work through this as assessors, we break those into smaller neighborhoods, so we're getting an accurate representation of the sales in those areas with those similar homes. So we're never valuing property at 1. We're always valuing it just below 1 to make sure we're in compliance and we're not overtaxing anybody. Mass appraisal is just that. It is done in mass, and stuff does slip through the cracks at times. I mean, there will be, we may go a couple of years with a house that we didn't pick up because we hadn't inspected that area and they didn't get a building permit. Or they may have torn a garage down and they didn't get a building permit, so we weren't aware. Or if it's out in an area where there are no building permits, We may miss it until we go back and do our field inspections again. But mass appraisal is just that. We're trying to value an entire jurisdiction and do it fairly and equitably. But like I said, mass appraisal does has its flaws. But every assessor knows, you know, you don't defend a mistake. If you find something that's wrong, you fix it. And it's just that simple. And sometimes we don't know until the homeowner comes in and lets us know. We don't know that their basement flooded and the finish that we had in it before is no longer there. Now, those questions do come up when the assessments go out. And that's why that 30-day appeal period is there for us to actually get better information or new information if we need that to get that home value correctly. Nobody is in here trying to tax their people out of their property. That's just not what we're doing. We're here to value property and treat people fairly, and that's what we do. I hope that answered your question.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, it does. I mean, and your county's obviously different than what the report that I've seen. I mean, but I can tell you that there was things on there connected to names and things that I saw. I mean, I don't even talk about it because there's probably there's enough information that I saw that would work in a lawsuit. I'm thinking that's where you're going, but so I don't even want to talk any more about it. So,
Well, it's probably not to drain the building.
sure,
Okay.
it's not.
So, all right. Well, thanks for the additional explanation. That does help, I think.
Thank you very much.
Any further comment?
Good evening, Chairman and Committee. My name is Ashley Harpstreet. I'm the Executive Director for Wyoming Taxpayers Association. Since I'm not often in ag for Revenue Committee bills, I thought I'd explain a little bit about us and how I came to my position. Today, Wyoming Taxpayers Association is a 501c4 think tank with a 501c3 research arm. Our mission is to advocate for sound tax policy for a healthy Wyoming economy. Positions that we take are based on an analysis of the legislation against our cornerstones of taxation through our policy committee. Their recommendation is then forwarded on to our 21 board of directors for a decision. And in that analysis, as I mentioned, we looked at the 4 cornerstones. Is this tax justified? Does the tax, is it make it equitable among taxpayers? Does the proposal create a stable revenue stream? And finally, is it transparent, visible, and accountable and audible? Based off that criteria, Mr. Chairman and Committee, WTA opposes Senate File 69 property tax limits as it fails to be sound tax policy for the following reasons. It is not justified as it will take away from local taxing entities, especially our school funding that's already shortfalled. It is not equitable as it creates inequities in class properties and is unconstitutional. This creates an unstable source of revenue as it will become unreliable and creates burden on other classes. It is not transparent as it requires administrative work to determine what the increases will be relative, whether the tax-paying entity is protected by the cap or not. That's all I have for you tonight. So thank you. I'll stand for questions.
Okay, thank you for your testimony. It's good to see you. And Senate Agriculture Committee, any questions?
Thanks.
Okay, well, thanks. Appreciate it. All right. Commissioner, welcome.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Lee Livingston, Park County Commissioner, representing WCCA. Our executive director is spending the night with his wife for her birthday. Vice President Novotny is babysitting their kids. So they pulled me up from the Farm League and I'm what you got. A lot of testimony has been made on this bill this evening. WCCA stands opposed to it. And in order to make a long day shorter, I really don't have anything more to say, but I will stand for questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Have a good
Appreciate
evening.
it.
Thank you.
Let's see. Okay, any further public comment?
Mr. Chairman, I do have Ms. Huxtable online now, if you'd like me to bring her in.
Okay, yeah, yep, bring her in.
Mr. Chairman,
Good to-
did we
see-
get there?
Yep, good to see you. Go ahead and proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Apologize for the late getting on. I was having a little trouble getting connected, so I apologize for that. I want to address a couple of issues with the bill. My esteemed colleague did a great job, but there was just a couple of other issues administratively that the assessors would have with this bill, and it had to do with the language as far as uniformity. We've touched a little bit on it in the testimony, but I want to be very clear that the uniform and equality part of this is you could have two houses very similar side by side in one jurisdiction, and one of them will reach the cap and not be allowed to go the 5%, but the house next to it, who is up for field review this year because it's in the rotation to be picked up, and maybe we've picked up an additional deck or we've picked up some other items on that property, will be able to go above the 5%. We really think that's an equitable issue and a uniformity issue. Part of that is because of the definition or lack thereof of the bill when it talks about a change. What constitutes a change? Does a sale constitute a change? Is there a dollar amount that's a new structure on a property constitutes a change? There's just some questions that need to be clarified. We believe in that bill to make it administrable so that we are uniform and equitable across the state. And then just a reminder that this is for all property in that class of all other property. It includes agricultural, residential, and commercial. As our friend from Farm Bureau has testified, ag values can go up. There's been many years it's went up more than 5% based on the cost of the commodity and the interest rate and the formula they use to establish value. 5% would have been with out of bounds for us many times based on those tables for the ag properties. So I just caution everybody that the 5% would be very limiting. And then, as my colleague said, any number that goes in there is somewhat arbitrarily determined. I don't know what would be a good number, so please don't ask me because I don't know. But certainly, we would have concerns about the uniformity. And with that, I would stand for any questions.
Okay, any questions for Ms. Huxtable? Okay, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. Okay, any further public comment? No one's going twice. Public comment is closed. Committee, what's your pleasure? Moved by Senator French, second by Senator Bouchard. Any discussion? Senator Costa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I commend the senator for the bill, but I feel like with the testimony and all that, I'm going to have to be a no vote.
Further comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll go and do a roll call.
Senator Bouchard.
Aye.
Senator French.
Aye.
Senator Cost.
No.
Senator Wasserberger submitted an absentee vote of no. Chairman Boner.
No.
Mr. Chairman, we have 2 aye, 3 no.
Okay. Well, that's all I sent file for this year. Thank you, everybody, for your participation, and we'll see you tomorrow.